But in the case of genocide, what I found then and now is that no one was stepping in to fill that gap. No one was stepping in to fill that gap. But even more importantly, there were no organizations looking at the patterns and similarities in how genocide unfolds and thinking upstream about how to prevent it.
Right. I'm Becky Brower, and I'm a Sendy Mom. Welcome to the Sendy Mom podcast. Welcome to the Sendy Mom podcast. I am so honored to be here with my friend Rachel Miner, and we're sort of new friends. We haven't known each other very long. We met at an event about, a month ago or something like that for Bellwether International, which is an NGO that operates from New York. Rachel has done some pretty amazing things in her life, graduated from Columbia. Is that right? And in economics. Okay. And then did you go on and get another degree in public policy? Okay. And so from what I understand, she goes into different governments that have some unrest, and she helps them to formulate plans to keep their countries from falling into genocide.
That's a great summary.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Hired.
There we go. Okay. And I'm excited to get a little bit into that. But really what I want to know is I want to know about Rachel. I want to know how she became this incredible powerhouse that she is and been able to connect with so many people on a personal level. And so we're going to ask a few questions about that. But the first thing I want to ask you is, what do you think a Sendy Mom is, and what makes you Sendy?
Yeah, it's a great term, used pretty liberally, I think, with the younger rising millennial and younger generation. Full send, like don't hold back, give it your all, be a risk taker, be courageous, be brave, and chase opportunities and excitement and thrill and fun and all those kinds of things. So Sendy Mom is someone who's taking that risk and excitement and really chasing every good opportunity, making sure that potential, preparation, and opportunity are all meeting at the crossroads of a full and happy life.
Oh, that's great. No, that's a beautiful definition of it. And I'm excited to kind of uncover how you have been able to do that in your life. One thing that I've noticed about Rachel is that she doesn't hold back. Like, you do things immediately. Like when I texted you, you're like right back, which I really appreciate. So, no thinking, just like, let's go do it. And I feel like that's a lot of my personality too. I love just being there, and heard a great story about when you were at a refugee camp somewhere and they needed underwear. And so you just sent people out there to go get underwear for those people.
Yeah, it was the middle of Warsaw, Poland. It was like 100 days after the war started. So Poland had to receive about 6 million Ukrainians basically overnight.
Wow.
And Poland, unlike other governments, they just opened their doors. They started teaching Ukrainian and Polish in all of their elementary schools. Everyone who could speak Ukrainian in the country volunteered to bring in Ukrainian families and started housing people in their homes. Like overnight, they helped adopt people. And there was a lot of families that kind of got lost in the fray and in the transition. Poland then received them into all the available spaces left: soccer stadiums, expo centers, conference centers, hotels. And so we went to one expo center. This is the story Brendan was telling at our event. And Bellwether's best practice is to always ask people what they need. You shouldn't make assumptions.
Right.
Just as I've come into your home today, I would never assume to know like what your kids need or what you need or what you're struggling with. And it'd be inappropriate if I made those assumptions and then, imagine I knock on your door, you open, hey, this is what you need and I'm going to pay for it. You'd just be kind of like, what? So
right. Yeah.
Our approach was to just sit with all these Ukrainians who'd come across the border. And we did. We just sat and listened and talked. And after a few conversations, it was really clear. They're just like, look, we just need a clean pair of underwear and some undergarments. Like everybody keeps bringing us shirts and pants. We just need some of the basics. So yeah, Brendan and I and a couple members of parliament from the UK, we literally just went out, and I think we purchased like 2,000 pairs of underwear,
That's crazy.
which was humorous,
but was what they needed.
but it's what they needed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's really what it's about. It's about listening and understanding and then going forth and doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty Sendy. Okay. Well, where did this all come from? So tell me a little bit about your background and where you grew up, the family that you grew up in. And
Yeah, I have an amazing family. I don't take that for granted one bit. Both of my parents are educated and educators, and I think that's been a huge blessing in my life. So my mom studied education. She got a PhD in curriculum design and taught while I was doing my undergrad. So it was cool to be on campus with your mom. You know, that's very Sendy to get a PhD when you're raising kids.
No kidding.
And she really instilled in me an appreciation for education, but then a strong sense of problem solving in the world. She used her PhD to start a mental health curriculum company that provides well-being resources for teachers all over the nation.
Oh, okay. Which group
it's called In Focus Education Group.
Okay.
So that's really where I started from my mom thinking about education, higher education, getting a master's, and then really thinking about, okay, how can I do good in the world? How can I use my education to do good? And my dad, he got an MBA and works on business psychology and organizational development and started his own consulting practice when I was pretty young. Okay. So from my dad, I got a real front view of what it looks like to be an entrepreneur and how to consult and how to collaborate. And both of them modeling, you know, their own careers, raising our family, but never making us feel that it was either or. They definitely prioritized our family, but they've both had, you know, really interesting, compelling job opportunities. You know, we'd move for mom, we'd move for dad, then we'd move for the family. It was kind of this dance that they did my whole life. I think that really gave me huge empowerment early on to focus on my studies. And I knew early on I wanted to do a master's and eventually a PhD. And then when the opportunity to start Bellwether came into my life, I felt that courage to be Sendy and, okay, I can do this. Mom and dad have taken their own risks. I talk to them. I counsel with my parents. They're my best friends. And I just think, you know, not everyone is so lucky. Certainly I don't have a perfect family. We have what all families do, you know, the messy and opportunities to learn and grow. But my parents really did give me so much that I learned at an early age.
Sounds like they helped you to feel really confident in whatever you were pursuing. Whereabouts were you in your family? Like
I'm the second oldest.
Okay.
And there's 3 girls and 1 boy. So my brother and I are in the middle, and then girls on either side.
Okay.
And yeah, I think you know, empowerment and focus on education came from my parents. A lot of confidence came from, I played soccer my whole life competitively. That gives you a lot of confidence when you have to work really hard for a sport or an instrument. I did play musical instruments. That brought a lot of discipline. I was really, I think, born with a lot of ambition. My parents joke that I was trying to run before I could crawl, and that created some exciting scars in my childhood. But yeah, I think every person has choice. Every person has opportunity to decide what they're going to do with what they've been given. I have enormous blessings and a lot of privileges, and I grew up in the United States and I grew up with educated parents, but even all of that withstanding, the most important thing that my parents taught me was like, use what you have and be resourceful. And I think that is the key to finding opportunity and finding success. Because in the end, if you work hard enough and you're resourceful, it actually doesn't really matter what education you have. Like you can get things done and you can achieve a lot.
You can figure things out.
You'll figure things out.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like even starting this podcast and everything, I had no idea what I was doing. But you know, watch a few YouTube videos and you ask people, and there's always a way. And I'm excited to talk to you too about, you know, some of these people that you have met in very humble circumstances who have been able to figure things out too. Because I know you had the sewing program that you did. What are some of the other programs that you do?
Yeah, we've piloted close to 100 programs in the last 5 years, really collaborating directly with communities. So It depends on what they need. But we've run programs on the health side, providing medical assistance, mental health assistance, trauma healing programs. We've run education programs. We run a school in Iraq. We have literacy programs. We do a lot of education work with internally displaced people in Nigeria. We have economic opportunity programs. We have dialogue and democracy programs, access to technology programs, teaching people how to use computers or create resumes or apply for jobs. It really depends on what a community has, what they need, what that knowledge gap is, and who else is operating in the space. We really work hard to never make assumptions about what's already being done.
Yeah.
And we don't come in, like, oh, we have all the answers. It's more, hey, what nonprofits have worked here? Did you appreciate those services? Was it successful? Oh, they left after 1 year. Why? Did they run out of money? Did they run out of partnership? And then with the community, kind of design these programs that whether we leave or the money leaves, they'll carry on even in our absence.
Yeah, that's super important. And you're able then to offer them an opportunity to step up and to make a better life for themselves and to be really proactive about becoming something better. So it's not just about the policies necessarily. You're actually building from the ground up, it sounds like.
Yeah, we call it top down and bottom up. So you need both in parallel. Governments do have enormous influence, and they are positioned to do some things better than nonprofits can.
Okay.
Governments build roads.
Sure.
Governments build bridges. They provide infrastructure, broadband, Wi-Fi. Those kinds of things are always going to be more effective when they come from government policies. A lot of the infrastructure that drives our society. There's gaps, though, that are left behind. And so the sweet spot is figuring out what governments can and should do better than everyone else and working with them on that. And what communities can and do and should do better than governments and working with them on that. And if you kind of work on both at the same time, then you get this really holistic approach where we're not reliant on governments or their funding, but we're in partnership with them.
Interesting. Is it different for every country?
Yeah, but really effective. I mean, a lot of people ask me, oh, is it hard when you work with governments, or do you have any governments that say like, no, we're just not interested in working with you? That hasn't been our experience yet, primarily because our strategy is to find the multipliers. So the countries that are already thinking about these kinds of changes and direction. And my experience in the world, I mean, I've been to over 50 countries, is that there really are more good people than bad.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
You can find them in every government. So even if there is, like, Nigeria has huge widespread corruption issues, we have super effective local government partnerships, and we get things done. And you find those counties, and then you work through their networks. You can be resourceful. You can find ways to work around some of these larger constraints, and then you can change the culture, and people start to know, oh, you're working with Bellwether, well, this is their culture. Okay, and then you kind of elevate the projects and the communities, and people learn to expect, oh, Bellwether is not going to work this way, they work this way. And
interesting.
Then you can change whole environments.
Whole societies and environments. That's incredible. Okay, so how did you get started with Bellwether? Were you working like a job before that? And
it was pretty unexpected. A lot of people ask me, how do I get a career in nonprofit? This was not planned for me.
Okay.
I studied economics, and I wanted, early on in my bachelor's degree, I wanted a lot of exposure to what economics could do. So I worked in Congress on the Hill. Can economics drive policy? Absolutely. Learned so much about the policy space. I worked in a law firm. What does law and economics look like? And then towards the end of my degree, I started thinking about, what about the economics of good? People are using economics primarily to think about profit, revenue, strong economies. But I think economics can actually do more that we're not thinking about. So I moved to London and wanted to see what economics could do for nonprofit.
Okay.
Super unconventional. A lot of my professors were kind of like, what are you doing? Like, go get an internship with, Goldman Sachs or
Yeah.
Deloitte, or that's
Uh-huh.
where a lot of my uh, colleagues went after their studies. But I went to London and worked for a small nonprofit, and they were responding to the Yazidi genocide in Iraq.
Okay. Okay.
And that's really where I started thinking about genocide for the first time.
Hmm.
So again, not a
How does
huge.
somebody respond to genocide?
Well, it was disturbing to me first to hear that genocide was happening in my lifetime. I remember learning about the Holocaust in high school and calling my grandma, realizing she was, a young mom at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma, did you know this was happening?
Yeah.
Did you do anything?
Uh-huh.
Why? And her response, well, we didn't really know, or we didn't have information. Once we knew, we tried to contact people or whatever. But yeah, she's like, yeah, we felt really helpless. We didn't know what to do. And then kind of having that full circle moment where I'm sitting at a desk in London and they're saying, oh, yeah, this has happened, just like the Holocaust. I was kind of like, what?
Yeah.
I'm in that same position.
So what am I going to do about it?
What am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And so I started looking at your question. How do people respond to genocide? How are people responding to a terrorist group called ISIS invaded Iraq and kind of used the power vacuum that was left behind by the US occupation there to target a religious minority group called the Yazidis. And genocide is different than other types of conflict. It's the deliberate targeting of a group of people based on identity.
Yeah.
So it's nationality, ethnicity, race, or religion. And ISIS has an extremist religious view that only their religion is right and all other people should die. So they targeted and killed the Yazidis. And this was kind of playing out in real time. And this charity was responding using medical clinics. So they were setting up, in the absence of whole cities that were burned down or whole communities that were destroyed, setting up small medical clinics for people to get medical care. And this was 5 years after the genocide. And there were still no places for people to go to get.
There were no refugee camps or things like that.
There are camps. What that normally looks like, though, is that a large group like the UN or IOM is the most common group to set up tents for refugees, International Organization for Migration. And they'll just kind of pop up tents and then rely on other NGOs to provide services.
Okay.
In the first, there's kind of a cycle to emergencies. In the first 6 weeks of an emergency, everyone steps in.
Okay.
IOM, UN, Red Cross, and they provide everything. But then after about 6 to 9 weeks, that emergency funding is gone. They have to prioritize other emergencies.
Right.
So then you see other organizations starting to fill that gap. But in the case of genocide, what I found then and now is that no one was stepping in to fill that gap. No one was stepping in to fill that gap. But even more importantly, there were no organizations looking at the patterns and similarities in how genocide unfolds and thinking upstream about how to prevent it.
Right. Yeah, which is what I'm super interested in. Like, how do you prevent genocide?
Well, it's crazy. I remember, I'll never forget, in grad school, I was in a lecture with a woman who advised the UK government on finances and plans. She helped the Bank of England. She did all these incredible things. And someone asked her, is it better to do 1 million good deeds or prevent one bad thing from happening? And she said, prevent one bad thing from happening.
I would agree. I think
it's way more impactful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if it's something like war or genocide.
Yeah. That sounds like an inspiration, like that inspired you.
Yeah, I'd already started Bellwether at that point, but it really solidified for me, like, okay, we're doing the right thing.
Right.
So what if we're going to prevent, thinking upstream, looking, 5, 10, 20 years before genocides happen? This is another like myth, because people are always like, we don't know anything about genocide. Well, it actually happens a lot more than people think.
Right.
It does. We have a lot of data. Unfortunately, we have a lot of data. So I started looking at the patterns. How does a group, like, let's take the Holocaust, for example, how does Germany, a developed global north, strong, high income economy, go from functioning to eliminating every single Jew.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Right.
There's a pattern. So what typically happens is really there's an economic shock first and foremost.
Okay. Yeah.
Germany had this huge recession.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty unprecedented for Germany, and it was long and it was painful.
Yeah.
When people don't feel that their economic needs are being met, they get really stuck in scarcity mindset.
Yes.
When you feel like your resources are scarce,
Mm-hmm.
then comes swiftly after that competition and scapegoats. People need someone to blame so that they know how to better allocate resources away
Interesting.
and towards their own scarcity.
Interesting. Yeah, which is totally what happened in World War II and with Hitler and everything.
Yeah.
They were worried about the Jewish people taking their customers. They were afraid of taking their business.
Yeah. Don't buy from Jews.
Right.
It started as an economic boycott.
That's really interesting because we can see that happening today in so many different places.
Well, you could say in the United States.
I know. That's what I was just thinking.
Who do we blame?
Right.
When there's economic downturn, who do we blame? So that's the first thing you're looking for. Is it a prolonged economic downturn or uncharacteristic for a country? It doesn't even have to be super long, but if it's kind of unprecedented or a little bit out of the norm, people get funny fast. Yeah. Then you look for what kinds of scapegoats. In a lot of cases when there's economic downturn, like in the United States, actually there's a lot of fingers being pointed in a lot of directions. But as soon as those pointed fingers start unifying towards a single scapegoat, that's warning number 2.
Okay.
We're not just blaming my neighbor and your neighbor. It is the Jews, or it is the Muslims, or it is this group of people. And now what we start to see is there's organization boycotts to isolate that group in groups and out groups. That isolation becomes more and more extreme, but it doesn't happen overnight. No genocide, from what I've studied, has ever been planned or carried out in less than 5 years. It takes a huge period of desensitization because it's not actually in our nature to blame someone and then immediately want to be violent towards them.
No. Yeah.
But if we're desensitized and for 5 years we're convinced it's these people, it's this, then people start doing really violent things.
You know, when you get a group of people that start talking to each other, and that's happening more and more, like on social media, where you get these people that are isolated together and start talking, they did this and they did this and whatever, then it builds that animosity towards a particular group. And so I can see how you can see that. And it's a little bit frightening because it's in the US too.
It can happen anywhere. And that's the third indicator. So disinformation comes in right after there's a scapegoat. Disinformation fuels violence. It does. All the data and research in the world shows this. And as soon as you start to see a lot of violence that's fueled by disinformation around a scapegoat, you're getting closer and closer to a genocidal act, but you're still not there. You're still probably a few years away.
Okay.
It's when those violent acts are then covered in impunity. So that means people are disappearing off the streets and people don't do anything. This scapegoat group is detained with no rights and people don't do anything. They're fined. There's a high profile murder case. The government doesn't do anything. People don't do anything. Years of impunity lays the seed for genocide to then occur.
Interesting.
Because the normalization of violence and the normalization of ignoring human dignity year after year after year then leads to really specific designs to completely eliminate a group. And you can look in lots of places. I mean, the troubles in Northern Ireland. You can look at the long history of conflict for both Israel as a nation post-Holocaust, but Israel and its neighbors. What's happening in Israel-Palestine right now is not actually a news story for either country.
No, it's been thousands of years, actually.
It's been thousands of years of impunity.
Crazy.
So then...
And I suppose you could stop it at any of those stages, right?
And that's Bellwether's mission.
Okay.
So there are clear indicators, there are clear patterns, and because it's prevention, 3 years in advance, 5 years in advance, 10 years, 15 years in advance. 15 years ago in Israel, Palestine, when 3 peace agreements failed, there
Mm.
could have been different interventions to strengthen both nations.
So like sending in diplomats or something like that to come and talk
Could
and
be part of it.
negotiate.
Dialogue is part of genocide resistance. The most effective genocide resistance is led by communities.
Okay.
So Hamas had a lot of time to think about how to attack Israel. Israel's had a lot of time to think about retaliation. And that's not the only example. Russia, Ukraine, Crimea
Yeah.
was over a decade ago.
Interesting. Yeah.
And the whole international community, because we don't really track these patterns, when things go unaddressed and then they spring up as these enormous violent genocidal events, we're all shocked. But this is what I started to realize. Wait a minute. This is actually maybe the only kind of mass violence that's totally preventable.
Wow. And we just turn a blind eye to it because we don't know what to do. I think about like your grandmother who said, well, we didn't really know what to do. So what do you do as like a normal person living your life? Like, what are the best ways to prevent genocide in the world?
Well, first to acknowledge that it happens and to bring down the temperature a little bit, because when we say the word genocide, when we talk about Ukraine or Israel or any of these places, there is a real emotional response. And I want to validate that. We live in a very polarizing, emotionally provocative time. Bring down the temperature a little bit to acknowledge that we're talking about human dignity. We're starting on a common ground, which is that we don't want anyone to die.
Right.
We don't want women and children to be hurt. I don't think any person of any political party is going to disagree on those common lines. Is the word genocide politicized? Absolutely. But so are other words like gender and climate. And that's never going to change. There's going to be politicized words. But if we can monitor ourselves and come from a place of love and understanding and acknowledge that first, genocide is real and it's happening, then acknowledge that we can do something about it in our own country, in our own sphere of influence, and in countries where we can extend that sphere of influence. But that's where I think people get overwhelmed. So start where you live. Genocide starts from hate. And parents who teach kids, you see that race over there, you see that ethnicity, you see that religion, don't trust them.
Right.
Don't talk to them. Oh, we don't play with them at our house. We don't do that.
Right.
You teach kids to hate, and it may or may not become genocide ideology, but it creates a culture where genocide ideology could then flourish in the future. So I always tell people like, oh, what do I do to help genocide resistance? Well, it depends on what you have. Everyone has choice and knowledge, so start with that. Don't teach your children to hate based on any identity. Teach them human dignity. Teach them the value of the human soul. And teach them to sit in the discomfort of disagreeing with something and an identity. You don't have to align with every ethnic group you meet or every religious group you meet, but you can love and respect human dignity in that group.
Exactly.
It sounds so simple, but you would be shocked. I see this at the grocery store. I see parents, don't look at them. I see parents, do you see that? Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
And that is a really important lesson to teach your kids and then model in everyday life. Then think about the next ring of your sphere of influence. If you have knowledge and education and other privileges and blessings, then you can start asking bigger questions. Well, I can do that, and I think I can do something more. The likelihood in the 21st century, and even more so in the next 5 years, of you living in a state in the US that has genocide survivors, enormous.
Really?
There are communities in the state of Utah
because refugees coming
who
here.
have come here as refugees from genocide communities.
So get to know them.
Get to know them, serve them, and just like we've talked about, knock on their door. Hi, you're a human. I'm a human. Let's connect. What do you need? What would you want that to look like? You'd be surprised. I spent a lot of time with the Afghan diaspora in Salt Lake City when the United States pulled out of Afghanistan, and certainly that's a country with genocide, historical and ongoing. And we didn't make any assumptions. I had an idea. I'm like, okay, I want housing, knocked on some doors. Their response, would you host our family for dinner? You better believe it.
How do you get in touch with these people?
So go through nonprofits like Bellwether can connect you to some of these groups, International Rescue Committee. Utah Valley refugees. I mean, it doesn't take much to do a little bit of research to find out where these pockets of people are with, groups that are servicing them, and then making connections, getting to know your neighbors, and then the next sphere of influence. Okay, I've helped people in my community. I think I can help people in my nation.
Yeah.
Where are there other movements, grassroots efforts, nonprofits to extend that? We're holding events all across the United States to talk about genocide ideology in the United States. This is an example of, that next sphere of influence. Okay, I'm working to help my nation. I feel good about that. I can do more.
Yeah.
Then you start to think about this global aspect,
right,
and what you can do, and thinking about what it looks like in a sustainable way. You can give to nonprofits, especially effective nonprofits. Bellwether's trying to model that for our donors, for the people we serve, but also for other nonprofits. We're trying to model like, this is what sustainability looks like.
Right.
You can give your time. Nonprofits like Bellwether, we have probably 100 volunteers who get on an hour every week and help us find grant opportunities.
Wow.
They help us translate materials from English to Spanish or Arabic or whatever.
Okay.
They help us set up for conferences.
Uh-huh.
That is a huge help.
Right. Yeah.
And then you can think about giving it even more. If you're an expertise in your field, oh, well, I'm an accountant. I'm a lawyer. I do podcasts. I have, a television channel. All of these things become part of the genocide resistance effort. And then your sphere of influence grows and you're able to do more and more.
Mm-hmm.
No effort, truly, however cliche it sounds. If you're working with an effective nonprofit, no effort is wasted, and it all counts.
Wow.
It all counts.
Well, anytime you're doing anything for anyone, it counts, and it helps, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to be willing to make the sacrifices to be able to make a difference. But I love that you can start anywhere. You start in your home, you start in your neighborhood, and then you can look out for other opportunities to serve, because in the end, we are all human beings, and we can connect to each other on that very basic level.
Yeah, and I'll put it in even like starker terms. Like, the reason that nonprofits even exist is because someone failed in the home.
Yeah.
Or a government failed in their state.
Hmm.
Or a government failed their people.
Yeah.
Nonprofits are having to fill a gap after something hasn't happened.
So even if you could go to the very beginning, if you could just train parents to be better parents.
Which is what we do.
Yeah.
That's why we're thinking at that micro level and that macro level. But truly, when you teach your children,
Mm-hmm.
no, we don't hate. No, we don't behave that way.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're going to be aware of what's happening in our state and the world. And this is why it matters.
Yeah.
You're now preventing some work that a nonprofit's going to have to do 50 years from now to clean up from an education gap or an economic gap or a conflict prevention gap that parents can address in their own homes.
Yeah, exactly. We're about halfway through the podcast. I want to remind you that this podcast is also on our YouTube channel at Sendy Mom. You can find our website at sendymom.com and on Instagram at sendy.mom. Please subscribe, review, and share this episode with people you think might need this message. Be sure to tune in to the next Sendy Spotlight. We'll be diving into the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This inspirational judge of the Supreme Court inspired Rachel Miner in her determination to work towards the ambitious goal of ending genocide. Justice Ginsburg worked against cultural norms to eliminate discrimination based on gender. She made it possible to have the discussion that still happens today about equality. We should all be working towards an equality in value for every human. I am grateful for the pioneers that came before us and look forward to giving you my thoughts about gender inequality and how courageously standing up for the unpopular belief benefits society. If you are interested in being featured on an episode of Sendy Mom or know somebody who would, please let me know by reaching out on email, direct message, or through my website. Everyone has a story of triumph. We are all heroes in part of our story. I want to bring out your hero. I want you to see that you truly can be Sendy. I have had such a great time interviewing Rachel. Please enjoy the remainder of our conversation and be sure to send it to others who you think would enjoy it as well.
I'll give you an example of one project that we're rolling out right now, called the Mothers and Chiefs Initiative.
Okay.
So across Africa, there are lots of social groups, in addition to kind of what we experience in the United States, you know, the church, the school system, the sports clubs, the government. In Africa, tribes are very important.
Yes.
And chiefs are very important.
Yeah.
And depending on the nation, mothers are as important as chiefs.
Really?
So
Interesting.
positioning mothers and chiefs to understand how to prevent genocide, to understand what we can do to support their communities in a way that involves their collaboration really goes a long way and is kind of ignored. Sometimes in parts of Africa, most of the education doesn't actually happen in the home because they're working on a co-op farm or they run, you know, a village school. You know, it takes a village. That phrase comes from Africa because they have a much more community approach to parenting.
Okay.
They're not as isolated as U.S. homes, and they're not as isolated in their parenting. So chiefs are fathers.
Okay.
So we're looking at all of this in the country of Nigeria, where they are absolutely at risk of genocide.
Yeah.
Upstream, we're looking at all these signs, and we reached out to several chiefs. You know, how are you educating your villages about human rights? Are these conversations you're having? Are there people in your villages that are leaving to commit violent acts based on identity? Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're seeing that. Yeah, we're seeing that too. Okay, we're going to have a special convening of the chiefs. We pulled together 18 chiefs from the northern states of Nigeria for a workshop that's never been done. We reached out to other NGOs and other partners. We had to track down the chiefs individually. It was a whole process. Brought them together. This was all led at a local level by a Nigerian woman who's a human rights lawyer, lives in these communities with these chiefs. So awesome. Imagine this room, 18 chiefs in their full tribal
regalia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in walks my project manager. Her name's Fatima, the only woman in the room, a human rights lawyer training of 12 years. All right, chiefs, we're going to talk about human rights today. What do you know, what you need to know, and how we're going to stop violence from coming out of your villages.
Were these some tribes that already had some?
There's always conflict between tribes. I mean, you know, political parties. There's always going to be conflict. Our mission isn't to eliminate conflict. Our mission is to prevent genocide, which will give you the skills to navigate conflict.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, but these chiefs were willing. And that's pretty impressive that they actually did want to come together. And so human rights are important to everyone. Like you said, you know, like nobody wants to hurt women and children. Everybody wants to be a solution to the problem.
Yeah, no one wants to be the victim of acts based on identity. I mean, everybody wants strong economy. Everybody wants to come home at the end of the day to food on the table and their kids sitting around it.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most basic universal desires.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world. So yeah, you find this common ground and then you create trust. I mean, it's not that we had just called up those chiefs. They knew who we were. They knew where we were working. We worked hard to earn their trust, to create an environment that was safe for them. But we've done these kinds of projects all over the world. And there's one that we're rolling out in Bosnia later this year, centered on mothers. Literally, we are training mothers to lead trauma-informed care in their homes, in their communities, and then in their nation. So families are at the center of what we're doing. It's the basic unit of society, and it's scalable. When you teach a family, you teach a community, you can teach and give resources and education. And that's part of the vision, right? Like when we leave, that education stays, those mothers stay, those chiefs stay. We don't have to go and set up an office in those villages
and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, because they do it because of a desire to make the world better.
And they already have that expectation in their societal role.
Yeah.
It's already their job to educate and prevent violence in their communities.
Yeah.
So our work is also just creating the natural extension for where things are already happening.
Yeah.
Don't recreate the wheel. It's running. It's fine. It's effective. It's been there for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Just give them the resources and education to make it that much more effective and genocide aware.
Okay. So what are some of the problems that you have encountered along the way, and how have you been able to kind of solve some of those problems?
Nobody wants to talk about genocide.
Mm,
The biggest problem is that I feel like I'm using a megaphone to talk about genocide's the deadliest conflict of the 21st century.
mm,
And it kills more people than climate change. It kills more people than any other disaster, natural disaster, or otherwise that we have. And people don't know that it's happening. People don't know what it is. People don't know what's happening. So massive education gap.
Education. Okay.
Once people know, they feel pretty motivated to act. But a lot of the constraints are, well, why would we focus on this instead of something else?
Yeah.
My persuasion is that it's the most pressing issue.
Mm-hmm.
I really wouldn't be as willing to dedicate my life, this season of my life, all of the time and effort that it takes to something that was semi-urgent.
Right. Yeah.
This is so
like
pressing.
priority. Yeah.
And if you prevent genocide, it's kind of the raising the tides when the boat's in the water phenomenon. Like the boat's there. If you prevent genocide, everyone rises.
Yeah.
Everyone rises. It's addressing so many other societal issues, right? We just gave an example. Families are strengthened, education is stronger, democracy prevails, economies are growing.
Yeah.
So, then if you overcome that constraint, it's thinking about how to find people who can give what you need to scale these programs, and then learning to be creative and not growing weary in what it takes to be a bellwether. Like the word bellwether, it means to be a leader, to be out in the front and kind of guide and lead the way. It can be, you can get tired, helping people to sit in the tension of these ideas and think about, wait, this is happening. I feel helpless. I feel apathetic, or opposite. I'm angry. I won't talk to you. They accuse me of all kinds of things. It's crazy. People, in my efforts to stop genocide, people get very emotional and very upset and political, and that just wears you down.
Yeah.
And
I
so
can imagine.
sitting in that tension and saying, okay, like we started this conversation, can we bring down the temperature? Can we find the common ground? And not growing weary in my own work. It just requires, I think, like I really rely on my faith. I really have a very strong spiritual practice that keeps me grounded and motivated and whole and moving forward, relying on family and friends, all of these things, building a community for myself. I think those have all helped me to overcome the constraints.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had to deal with imposter syndrome?
All the time.
Yeah?
We all have it. Even
Okay.
famous people have it. Even governments, I've met presidents of countries and everybody.
Like, why am I here?
Everyone has imposter syndrome at some level. Granted, some people have more than others, but I feel like imposter syndrome is kind of like a pair of sunglasses. If you put it on and see the world through that lens, you're going to be absolutely paralyzed.
Right. Yeah.
Or you can put on a different lens. My favorite pair of sunglasses is, I'm not the most qualified to do this. I don't have all the answers or all the resources. But until I find someone else is committed, I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to do it.
And when I find someone more committed, I'm going to partner and learn from them.
Yes.
And that's the resourceful sunglasses. Those are my favorite pair. I just keep those on. I don't take them off.
I love it.
Sometimes I get tempted to put on imposter syndrome glasses and turn inwards and think about my own insecurity and ability or capability to do something. And I'm like, this is a waste of time. I'm not interested.
So do you feel like growing up, like with the parents that you had, do you think that they helped you to recognize within yourself what you were able to accomplish, that you could do this?
It's the age-old question, nature versus nurture.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's a unique combination. I think it's a unique combination of absolutely the blessings of my family, the privileges of my family, but also I've had a lot of experience. I've worked for international charities. I worked in Congress before this opportunity. Lots of chances to kind of spread my wings afield, take risks, like risks that have, not really a ton of really serious consequences.
Yeah, like cautious.
Yeah, and risk, I've been bold, and I've done leadership training, and I did a master's. Like all of these things have helped me position myself to understand what it looks and feels like to make a difference. And everyone can do that. That's the cool part.
You just have to do something, right?
Yeah.
So you start somewhere and you do the little things and then it builds from there. So as long as you can, put yourself in these uncomfortable situations just a little bit, then you're going to start feeling a lot more comfortable with it. So,
and I think the cure to imposter syndrome is action.
Yeah.
Because imposter syndrome ultimately, what does it drive you to do? It drives you to sit there and think, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
If you want to cure imposter syndrome, do something. Do something.
Right.
This is a really famous phrase that comes out of Liberia, actually. So there was a really serious civil war there, and it was turning into genocide really quickly. This was in the 90s, early 2000s, and then into the 2000s, well into the 2000s. So almost like a 35-year war, basically.
Okay.
And government was not filling the gap or responding. Nonprofits weren't responding. There's a group of women that sat down together and said, we have to do something. These are our sons.
Yeah.
They're picking up guns. They're doing this thing. So there's this famous phrase that came out of this women's movement. They ultimately stopped the Civil War, led the disarmament process, and
That's amazing.
There's an amazing film about it, Pray the Devil Back to Hell. It'll change your life.
Okay.
Bellwether's hosting an event in Utah this September with the mother that started this movement. Her name's Leymah Gbowee.
Okay.
She won the Nobel Peace Prize. Anyways, the phrase that came out of Leymah's work in this group of mothers was that anytime they'd walk into a room, a house, a village, a hut, they would, for any of the women in the room, they would say, women, do something. And they would all just chime in. And I was in Liberia earlier this year, and I walked into one of this historical women's meetings. Like, they'd gathered. They still gather. They stopped the Civil War, and they're still gathering. It's like the coolest thing ever. And I walked in, and this is what they said right when I walked in. And I was like, what? What's going on? And they're like, this is what we say. This is what we say to light the fire in each of us and remind ourselves that we are women and we can do something.
We can do something. Yeah. The biggest problem, I think, is when we do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And when we just watch it and we let it happen.
Totally.
So, oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you. Yeah, for sharing so much about, what all the good that you're able to do, and just the way that we can all do something and we can move forward. I love too that all mothers are kind of the same. We want what is best for our children, and we want to teach them proper principles, and we want them to grow up to be good people, right?
Yeah.
So if we can.
Mothers are our number one strategy for genocide prevention.
I love that. And, the fact too, one of the ways that I tried to parent my children was understanding that the things that they do are going to be repeated. And so I don't need to get all upset because I messed it up that first time. I just need to look back and see, what did I do wrong and what am I going to change for the next time so it doesn't happen again? Because I think so often we let the same thing happen over and over again, and we expect different results. If we're not changing anything, then we are going to get the same thing again. So I love that you're looking back 5, 10, 15 years before, 20, 2,000 years before, this has happened before. Let's look at this. And I guess that's what economics is, right?
Totally.
So, and being able to be the bellwether of where we want to, turning the ship in a different direction, and leading the people in a different direction. So that is a beautiful mission that you have, in incredible things that you're doing. So,
well, and I'll just say one last thing. There's no flock of sheep in the world without a bellwether sheep. It's literally the lead sheep that has a bell tied around its neck.
Yeah.
But the word I want to emphasize in that, the origin of the word, is the flock of sheep. Bellwethers don't and can't operate alone.
Yeah.
And if you find your flock, if you find your village, your community, your relief society, your people, then you can be a bellwether. And they can be bellwethers in their sphere of influence. And soon you have a community of bellwethers. But as you said, we'll help parent your children.
Yeah.
We'll model these good behaviors. Like, you don't have to do it alone.
Right.
You shouldn't do it alone.
No,
it's completely economically inefficient.
Yeah.
That's the nerdy side of me. But also, you don't have to. Even in Western societies where the culture and the messaging is do it alone and do it perfect, or don't do it at all.
Self-reliance. And
that's not actually what we need to make these huge waves of change in the world.
We need communities and connections.
We need flocks.
Yeah. And that's one thing I love, visiting different places in the world too. And being able to see, like, we are the same. Totally. We have the same goals. We have the same desires. And if we can pull those kinds of things, then we're going to draw people towards us. Exactly. So love it. It's the coffee bean analogy. If you put a coffee bean in or a cocoa bean, whatever, in a hot water, you're going to influence the whole cup of water, and you're going to attract other you
I love
know,
it.
means to you. And
I love it.
that's what we try to do at Sendy Mom. So, and you are one of us.
Happy to be here.
For
Honored to
sure.
be here.
I'm so glad you're here. I have some rapid fire questions that
Okay.
I'd like to ask. So, what has brought you joy in the last 24 hours?
In the last 24 hours, blue skies. My goodness. I lived in London a long time. You don't always get blue. And now I live in New York,
It's
so you
true.
don't always get sky.
That's true too.
And the blue skies here are really big.
I love it. They
I
are.
really love them.
Oh,
My gosh, I've
you-
spent tons of times outside in the last 24 hours.
I'm so glad. Yeah, no, it's been beautiful weather lately. So this is a good time for you to be here.
Totally.
For sure. Okay, what about a good book that you've read recently?
A good book that I've read recently. I read Malala's father has a book, Let Her Fly. It's his memoir. That's the book I've read most recently.
Okay.
Preparation for our event is really beautiful and touching. I'd recommend.
Yeah, and he talks about, so she is the one that resisted the Taliban in Pakistan. Yeah, and her father was the one who started the school that she was trying to go to. So yeah, so be sure and check that one out. That's great. What about a documentary or TV series that you like to watch?
Wow, I love documentaries, and I'm trying to think of the most recent. I watch them all the time. There's so many interesting ones. I don't watch a lot of TV series, if I'm honest. I don't have a lot of time to watch TV, but let me think of some titles of documentaries. There's a really beautiful documentary about a Syrian beekeeper that I watched recently, and kind of follows her story and what it looks like to be in the bee economy in Syria. That was really beautiful.
Wow, that is so random.
Yeah, it was totally random, but the cinematography was extraordinary. I loved it.
That's awesome.
It was really great.
Well, the next question I usually ask is, what nonprofit do you support? And I think we know that one.
Well, you know what? I support Bellwether, but I also support other nonprofits in my community. Okay. So I'm a donor for a local school in my neighborhood in New York City. It's a lower income school. It's called Cristo Rey. I ran a marathon, or I'm running a marathon for their donation campaign
That's cool.
This year. So I try to really practice what I preach and like still orient myself in local giving, even though I do run a nonprofit.
That's amazing. And if people wanted to find Bellwether, where would they look for it?
You can find us on the web, Bellwether NGO. We'll bring up all of our social media, our website, everything you need to find.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, name your favorite vacation spot.
Wow. Favorite vacation spot. Again, not something I spend a lot of time doing, but anywhere with just a nice nature scene. I'm not too particular. I love a good beach. Really partial to the mountains, though, I think, because I grew up in Colorado and Utah later. Yeah, I spent some time. I went upstate New York for my most recent vacation and just spent some time in the rolling hills. Those are hardly mountains. I can't call them mountains, but just a nice nature scene.
Okay. Yeah, great. And what do you try to do? Is there something that you try to do every day?
There's a lot of things I do every day. I spend time with my faith, building my spirituality every single day. I exercise every single day. I do have the rule that I have to leave my apartment or my workspace every day. You have to get outside.
Yeah.
Every day. Even if it's raining, you need to get outside and breathe fresh air. So those are some things I do every day.
Yeah. Do you find yourself getting really sucked into your work?
It can be all-consuming when you love something so much, when you're so invested. But no, I chose to prioritize sleep early on, and that's paid off for me. So,
it does make a difference.
Yeah, it does. Sleep. Longevity matters.
Yeah. Well, what do you think I should try next?
What should you try next? You should try getting involved in local politics.
Wow. That is something I have never thought about doing, but
Utah has a great new political action committee called the Governing Group.
Okay.
Becky Edwards started it after she lost her campaign to really empower local elections. You could volunteer with them or others. You could attend your local election information meeting, but we need more people who know what it feels like and looks like to be involved in democracy, in the election process specifically. So you don't have to run for office, but you should go full send and get involved in local politics.
I love that. I actually would love to do some more of that, just to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I've been to school board meetings before, and it's really interesting to see some of these decisions that they make at the top. They really do affect the people that they are looking after.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And just because you're not involved in local politics doesn't mean that there are people you don't want involved making decisions. So
Right.
that's what I always remind people. Like, unfortunately, there are trade-offs to democracy. Democracy is always going to be messier, slower, and require more from its people.
Yeah.
But the payoffs, you go to one meeting, you actually could change a policy. You could change where the road is built. You could change the stop sign they put at the four-way stop. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are happening in democracy every day.
Yeah. And if you remove yourself from that situation, then you remove yourself.
Consequences.
Yeah, exactly. You remove yourself from you have the consequences.
Yep.
So yeah.
Get involved in local politics. Let me know how it goes.
I love that. I will let you know. So, well, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I hope that, you know, I wish all the best for Bellwether and all the things that you are doing, and I'm looking forward to a long relationship with
Likewise.
you.
Thanks so much.
Yes, and thank you for being on the Sendy Mom podcast today. And be sure and look for us at sendymom.com and on our social media at sendy.mom, and we will see you there. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, do something every day that scares you.